All right, welcome everybody, and thank you again, Amy, for being on with Wellness with Gina. And I like to call these the Coach's Corner. So I'm so happy to invite you back for another topic of guilt and resentment when it comes to professional working women and how we do it all with our mental load. So welcome back.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I think that this topic is so timely with everything going on in our world. It's like, we don't get a break, and then we feel guilty about being in one life area when we should be in another life area. And where's the balance? How do we find that? And it's just keeps evolving and evolving. And then we get angry at our partner or our kids for not being able to read our minds and help us out. Why is nobody helping us out?
Right? That's always the question. Like, why can't anybody see the things that I'm doing, what I'm holding? Why, I think we've all been through this. And it's such a common refrain. And I think part of it stems from this idea that as the mother in the family, the woman in the family, our tendency is we kind of hold the social nervous system or track it a lot more, than maybe if we have a male partner, then maybe our male partner, or it just depends on the roles that we've gotten ourselves, that we sort of have stepped into. And this idea that, why can't anybody see what else is going on? And so we begin to hold these things. And the question I always ask parents that I work with is, well, are you clear on what you need? Like, are you clear on what is actually yours to hold and what is something that you could ask for support? And asking for help, sometimes that's hard for people. I know that's been hard for me for a long, long time. Or if we have asked for help, maybe it hasn't been received as easily as we would hope it would be. And so the first step really, I think, is just understanding what your needs actually are. Because that resentment will come up when resentment is really just frustration of not feeling seen, understood, or heard, right? We are holding something that's not ours to hold. And that may be because of the spoken or unspoken agreements, usually, that made between the members of any entity, so a family or a partnership or a business, right? And so,
absolutely.
So
this could go either way, like family or career in your work. Absolutely.
Exactly. So what I always say is, no feelings. There's nothing wrong with any of the feelings that you're having, right? Resentment is just an experience that you're having. And it doesn't mean that you're right or you're wrong. It just means that you're having an experience and that we have to take a moment and really listen to it. It's an indicator for ourselves to pay attention. And so if you find yourself like continually in it and always feeling frustrated and always feeling, like something is not working right, then it's time to stop and take a moment and really reflect and even have a conversation with who, and they may not even be the source, the people that you feel most frustrated with, right? May not even be the source of what the true frustration is. So it's really an introspective process. And
it really is.
Yeah. It's really an introspective process. And when we feel like we're pointing at somebody else, that somebody else isn't doing something, we have to remember that all those fingers are pointing back at us, that we have to take a moment and really understand what's happening internally, so that we can identify what need is not being met, right?
Yes.
We all have needs. We have needs and we have wants. And sometimes those get mixed up, but we still have there are underlying needs, and those needs may be to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel connected, to feel safe. There are lists of needs that are basically underlying the feelings that we have. And so
Yeah.
it's important to get into those. And
Yeah.
I think one of the words that we talked about too was guilt, right? That
Yes.
we feel guilty. And I will say that, so guilt is actually a somewhat healthy emotion to have. I would say shame is sort of its sister, and that's the one that we want to be really careful about. That when we feel
Right.
shame, that we need to bring whatever that is out into the light, because shame will tend to bring us um, into hiding, into not wanting to show what's happening. But guilt is one of these things that it's, I think, a really healthy emotion to have. Like, it just draws attention to maybe something, again, that we need to just look at. Like, if I'm feeling guilty about not being with my family, then I have to ask myself the question. I'm not a bad person. It's just a feeling
Right.
I'm having. But the question is, are my priorities where I want or need them to be?
Right, right. And I think there is a real difference between that guilt and shame. Shame is like, I am bad. Guilt is like, ooh, I did something and maybe that wasn't such a good thing. So there really is, it may be two sides of the same coin, but it's completely different when you talk about your perception of yourself. So yes, we can feel guilty. It's okay to feel guilty, but not inch over into that shame piece. Try to stay away from that.
Yeah. So the guilt is about our behavior. The shame is about who we are. And we're not bad people. At the core, we're all human, good people with good intentions. Maybe we've made a mistake, or maybe we've made a choice. And I think one of the things we talked about, or what I hear a lot from parents, is they feel really guilty when they have to work. And now we're we're getting close to summertime. So this is going to come up a lot for parents when their kids are on break and they still have to work. How do they manage that balance so that they're not feeling guilty? They're not feeling guilty with work if they've taken the time to spend with their family, and they're not feeling guilty that they're with their family, or that they're not with their family when they have to work. So it's really comes down to identifying, the ways, the responsibilities that we have, the choices that we're making, being really good with those choices, and then being fully present in the place where you are.
And I think also having those crucial conversations with your kids and with your partner. And if you guys tune into the Mental Load playlist on YouTube, I have a whole video on that in that playlist about having those crucial conversations. So it's tricky, right? Because we don't want to lay blame, and we don't want our frustration to be dumped on anybody else.
Nope.
It's really about owning what is ours. And again, just like you said, knowing where your priorities and values are and being able to voice that in a way that is going to be heard and not the wall to go up, but actually heard and validated.
Exactly. And that comes down to our own clarity, right? We're clear and we understand. And then when we communicate, we're communicating from a place of what is mine and how I'm feeling and what I need, and not what are you doing wrong. Right. That we're taking our own personal responsibility. And when we can come at that, anytime we're coming into a difficult conversation, if we can come to it with some neutrality, or with, without charge is what I call it, right? Because when we come in and we're frustrated and we're angry and we want something to change and we've got all this energy behind it, I mean, how do you feel when somebody comes at you like that? Right? You're like, hold up, give me a minute. I can't. The person's going to become defensive or shut down, or it may trigger some of their own trauma responses, and then you're in this loop and you can't really get out of it. So it really takes having the capacity to um, identify what your own needs are, come to the conversation. And I even like to tell people, if this is a hard thing to do, is actually to name that, right?
Hmm.
I'm feeling really upset. And I'm feeling really vulnerable right now. This is really hard for me to share. So
Hmm.
I really need you to hold this space for me so I can get it out. And it may not be pretty, but let me get it out and then let's figure it out.
Right.
When we can say that, it disarms people. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, let me really
Right.
listen and know that this is hard for you, and we can work through it.
Absolutely. I think it bears mentioning that we should be able to forgive ourselves too when it comes to that feeling of guilt or even resentment.
Yeah,
That we need to be, giving ourselves a little grace, and whoever is in our household that we're feeling that resentment toward, a little grace as well. We're
yeah,
not going to be perfect. And I know our ego is wrapped up, and our identity is wrapped up so much in whether you're a mother or your career, or, whatever you identify yourself as doing, but so much of the doing is not really you. So that's a whole topic for another time. But really being able to step back and say, okay, maybe that wasn't the best choice. Maybe I should have been more present with my kiddos, or taken the time out to, do X, Y, and Z. And I chose not to, but I'm going to do better next time. Like, I know that that was not the right choice. I'm going to do better next time.
yeah. And I think especially with our kids and our partners and our bosses too, or whoever, our
Hmm.
colleagues, is when we do make a choice that wasn't working, right? We're not bad. And we come to them and we say, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
recognize now that that was not the best choice. Or um, I want you to know that this is really important to me. You are
Hmm.
really important to me. And so I want you to know that I'm going to try harder. And what do you need? What do you need from me? And how can I be more present with you? And
Yeah, good
I think,
questions. Those are some really good questions. I hope the people who are watching this on replay are writing this down, because there are some really good clarifying questions, not only for yourself, but for, whoever you're having this conversation with.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've had you know, we don't want our kids at the table looking at their phones. We need to also
Right.
to do the same. And if we have to, for whatever reason, I think it's important to be able to say, listen, I don't normally do this, but right now there's an emergency happening at work and I need to have my phone here. I want you to know that this is not the norm. This is not going to be the norm, but it's something that's required of me right now. But I'm going to be as present as I can, and
Yeah.
just know that this is here. So I can also settle down and know that if something happens, I can handle it quickly and
Right.
not let it draw out. Right. So when we can be forthcoming and explain
Hmm.
in advance, ask permission, hey, I want to spend time with you. Would you rather, this is what's happening. Would you rather I do this with you or be present for this? But to just keep the dialogue open and let the other
Right.
person, especially our children, know that
Hmm.
we're not just running on autopilot. We are
Right.
really conscientious and thinking about their needs and our relationship, even in these moments when we might have to make difficult choices.
Absolutely. So when we think about guilt and resentment, I'm hearing a few things going on here. If we really want to narrow this down, it's like, okay, I need to know myself and what my needs are. That's kind of the first step here. And maybe I need to forgive myself on some level here. I need to ask for what I need and have a crucial conversation in a way that's going to be heard and validated, and
Mhm.
keep the lines of communication open with
Yeah.
the people that I love, the most, and coworkers as well, if that needs to be done on the other side, the career or working side. So there's so many levels to this
Mhm.
conversation, but so much of this hidden kind of behind the curtain. And we want to put on that brave face and feel like we can do it all and handle it all, when in reality, it can really be tugging at the heartstrings, I think, for a lot of us women who are trying to do everything. And we just feel like we're dropping the ball when it comes to some important people in our lives. So
Right.
I appreciate all of these little tidbits. Is there anything else that I left out?
No, but what I would say is, like, especially as we're moving into summer, and there is probably going to be a little bit more of this juggling, is to really, I think presence is the most important piece of this, and to really know, like, from your work perspective, like, what do you absolutely have to do, what time periods, and when you have to do that, fully do your work. Like, get in there, do the work that you have to do, let your family know these are my work times. I need to focus here, because I'm going to focus here so that in these times,
Right,
this is our time, and I'm going to be fully present with you during this time. And
right,
this is what I need to do. For many parents, they have to work, they have
right,
to make a living, and to be able to say, listen, I get this flexibility that my parents may not have had, right? My parents worked 9 to 5 jobs, had to go into the office, and some of us have a little bit more flexibility. Some of us need to ask for a little bit more of that flexibility in our workplace, because it's important to us, right? And that might be a hard conversation. That's a different conversation. But in terms of being with the family, is to be able to say, here's my commitment to you. Can
hmm,
you accept this? Can we agree to this? And these are the things that you'll do during the times that I'm working to take care of your responsibilities, so that
right,
when we're together, we're really together, because
right,
quality is more important than quantity, right?
hmm,
Quality time, fully present with our loved ones, will go a lot further than disjointed, more time, but completely disjointed and distracted with all of the other things. So that would be my
yeah,
final piece, is just, if you can find a way, it's kind of compartmentalizing, but if you can find a way to be fully present in each of the things that you have to do, so that when you're with your family, you're all there, then they will
hmm,
feel that, and that can fill them up for the times that you can't be.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's just about using your time well, being a good time manager and focusing your time that way. So good tips. Wow. This went by quick. The time
Yes,
goes by so fast.
yes.
But it's all good stuff. It forces us to get down to the nitty gritty. And next week, we will be back to talk about your cycles, hormones, right?
Yeah, yeah, seasons and cycles. One of my favorite things to really maximize our productivity, and understanding how to, um, just be more in flow and able to handle all the things of our life, by really understanding what's happening in our body.
Absolutely. Another great conversation
Yeah,
you won't want to miss. So, all right, Amy, thanks so much. And I'll see you next week.
sounds great. Thanks, Gina.